Commander Ashley Martinez had seen countless sunrises from Houston Control, but none like this. The morning light fractured through the crystalline vessels hovering above the city, casting prismatic shadows that danced across her control panels. She fought the urge to squint as rainbow refractions turned the command center into a disco ball from hell. "Status report on the International Space Station," she called out, keeping her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. The massive alien ships had appeared just hours ago, materializing through what their sensors could only describe as localized space-time distortions. Lieutenant Rodriguez, his face illuminated by the strange light, responded without looking up from his station. "ISS maintaining stable orbit, Commander. But these readings, the alien vessels are generating some kind of interference field. It's playing havoc with our traditional scanning equipment." A sharp crack echoed through the command center as all screens simultaneously switched to an incoming transmission. The face that appeared wasn't what anyone expected. The Zextheri ambassador looked almost human, save for the crystalline growths that emerged from their temples and the iridescent sheen of their skin. "People of Earth," the ambassador's voice resonated with an unsettling harmonic undertone. "We are the Zextheri Imperium. Your world has been chosen for integration into our crystal domains." Martinez noticed how the aliens' expression shifted as they studied the human command center. Was that amusement? "We have analyzed your technological capabilities," the ambassador continued, their lips curling into what could only be described as a smirk. "Your reliance on nuclear fission and primitive electromagnetic systems is charming. Like watching children play with stone tools." The command center erupted in murmurs as massive holographic displays appeared above every major city on Earth, showcasing the Zextheri's technological superiority. Their ships, it seemed, were powered by what they called quantum crystal matrices, capable of channeling and amplifying energy in ways that made Earth's most advanced reactors look like potato batteries. Martinez frowned as she studied the energy readings from their ships. Something wasn't adding up. Every time a vessel passed through the Van Allen radiation belts, there was a subtle fluctuation in their crystal matrices. The effect was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it was there. "Your orbital habitat," the ambassador gestured dismissively toward the ISS. "This collection of metal tubes you call a space station. It's barely worthy of being called space debris. In fact," they paused, letting out a sound that might have been laughter. "We had initially mistaken it for garbage left in orbit." The mocking cut deep, but Martinez kept her eyes on the readings. The Zextheri ships were actively avoiding certain regions of Earth's magnetosphere. Why would vessels so advanced need to navigate around natural radiation fields? "Commander," Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered, "they're broadcasting this conversation across their entire fleet. They're treating this like entertainment." Indeed, smaller crystal drones had appeared throughout the command center, capturing the humans' reactions for what appeared to be some sort of galactic reality show. The ambassador's next words confirmed it. "Witness, citizens of the Imperium, the charming confusion of a pre-integration species. Note their reliance on physical displays and crude energy generation. This will serve as an excellent educational documentary on why the crystal path is superior." Martinez reached for her tablet, discreetly recording the energy fluctuations. The aliens were so busy mocking Earth's technology that they didn't seem to notice her interest in their ship's behavior. Or perhaps they simply didn't consider her primitive instruments capable of gathering any meaningful data. "You have 48 Earth hours to prepare for integration," the ambassador declared. "We suggest you spend this time contemplating the honor being bestowed upon your species. Resistance would be—" They glanced again at the human technology surrounding them, laughably futile. As the transmission ended, the command center burst into frantic activity. But Commander Martinez remained focused on her readings. The aliens' crystal technology wasn't just channeling energy, it was amplifying it. And if she was right about what she was seeing in these patterns— She looked up at the crystalline ships glittering in the morning sun. They had turned Earth's sky into crystal, thinking it would demoralize humanity. Instead, they might have just handed her the key to their destruction. "Lieutenant," she called out, her mind already racing with possibilities, "get me everything we have on nuclear reactor harmonics, and find Dr. Peterson from quantum computing. Tell him to bring his research on crystal resonance patterns." The Zextheri thought Earth's technology was primitive. They were about to learn that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most devastating. The basement laboratory of the Quantum Research Center hadn't changed since Commander Martinez's college days. The same flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the faint smell of burnt coffee lingered in the air. But now, instead of textbooks and exam papers, the tables were covered with printouts of energy readings from the Zextheri ships. "You realize we're both committing career suicide if we're wrong about this," Dr. Emily Peterson said, pushing her thick-rimmed glasses up her nose as she studied the data. The quantum physicist hadn't changed much since their university days, still the same brilliant mind hidden behind a perpetually disheveled exterior. "And if we're right," Martinez spread out another set of readings across the cluttered desk. "Look at these patterns, M. Their ship's crystal matrices don't just channel energy, they amplify it. But there's a catch." Peterson nodded, already seeing where her old roommate was going. "The amplification isn't perfectly controlled. Each time they pass through naturally occurring radiation fields, they have to actively compensate," Martinez finished. "That's why they're avoiding the Van Allen belts. Their superior technology has a fundamental weakness, one they've engineered around so well that they've forgotten it exists." The sound of footsteps in the corridor sent both women scrambling to hide their work, but it was just the night janitor passing by. They were operating without authorization now. The UN Security Council had explicitly ordered all military personnel to cease any research that might be construed as aggressive action. "The crystals resonate at specific frequencies," Peterson mused, pulling up a simulation on her laptop. "If we could generate a strong enough electromagnetic pulse at exactly the right frequency." She paused as the simulation showed a cascading pattern of crystal fractures. Martinez leaned closer, watching the digital destruction unfold. "How much power would we need?" "More than any conventional system could generate." Peterson's fingers flew across the keyboard, running calculations. "But if we used multiple nuclear reactors, synchronized their outputs," her voice trailed off as she saw the numbers. "We'd need at least 8 reactors," Martinez said, already thinking ahead. "And we'd have to get them into orbit without the Zextheri realizing what we're doing." Peterson looked up sharply. "Nuclear reactors? In orbit? Ashley, that's insane. The Security Council would never." "The Security Council isn't going to approve anything," Martinez cut in. "They're too scared of provoking the Zextheri. But think about it. What's the one thing the aliens keep mocking? Our primitive nuclear technology. They don't even consider it a threat." The physicist sat back, running a hand through her already messy hair. "The perfect cover. They'll be so busy laughing at our primitive attempts that they won't realize." She stopped, her eyes widening as she ran another simulation. "Oh my God. Ashley, look at this." The new simulation showed something unexpected. If positioned correctly, the Zextheri ship's own crystal matrices would amplify the electromagnetic pulse, creating a chain reaction that would tear through their entire fleet. They engineered their way around the resonance weakness by avoiding natural radiation fields, Martinez said slowly, watching the simulation play out. But they never considered that someone would be primitive enough to deliberately create those specific frequencies. Because it would be suicide, Peterson pointed out. Any civilization advanced enough to understand crystal resonance would be using it themselves, not fighting it with brute force radiation. Martinez smiled grimly. "Exactly. We're just primitive enough to make this work." She gathered up the printouts, already forming a plan. "I need you to get me everything you have on nuclear reactor harmonics, and we'll need help. Engineers, physicists, anyone who might understand this enough to help but crazy enough to try. And how exactly are we going to get multiple nuclear reactors into orbit in less than 48 hours? Peterson asked, but she was already saving the simulation data. Remember that space debris they were mocking? Martinez's smile turned predatory. I think it's time we showed them why you should never underestimate human ingenuity or human junk. As they worked through the night, the crystalline ships continued their ominous dance above the city, their crews completely unaware that their greatest weakness was about to be turned against them by the very primitive technology they despised. The decommissioned nuclear submarine reactor hung suspended in space, its massive bulk rotating slowly as suited figures swarmed around it like spacewalking ants. Commander Martinez watched from the cockpit of her shuttle as Lieutenant Rodriguez guided another reactor into position with precision thruster burns. The Zex Theory news channels are eating this up. Dr. Peterson's voice crackled over the comm. She was monitoring communications from Houston, coordinating with their growing network of rogue engineers. They're calling it primitive species theater, when cavemen go to space. Martinez smiled behind her helmet visor. Perfect. The more they laugh, the less they look. She switched channels to address the work crews. Remember, folks, make it messy. We want this to look like desperate humans throwing together space junk. The truth was far more precise. Each reactor was being positioned according to Peterson's quantum calculations, creating what would become a resonance web. The welding teams, comprised of the best engineers they could trust, were making deliberately sloppy-looking external welds while hiding the real connections beneath. Incoming transmission from the Zex Theory flagship, Rodriguez warned. They're doing another comedy broadcast. The crystalline ships above them sparkled as the alien ambassador's face appeared on their helmet displays. Observe, citizens of the Imperium, the charming desperation of a pre-integration species. Note how they cling to their obsolete nuclear technology, like primitives discovering their first fire. The camera drones buzzed around the construction site, broadcasting what the Zex Theory thought was humanity's last pathetic attempt at resistance. Their crystal ships drew closer, wanting better angles for their entertainment feeds. Commander, one of the welding crew called out, they're within 50 kilometers of Junction Point 3. Should we halt construction? Negative, Martins replied, checking the radiation readings. Let them come closer. The more data they collect now, the less likely they are to spot the real threat later. She switched back to her private channel with Peterson. How's the resonance mapping coming? Better than we hoped, Peterson answered. Their broadcast crystals are giving us perfect readings of their matrix frequencies. They're literally helping us calibrate our weapon while they mock it. A squad of smaller crystal ships darted between the reactors, their crews taking what they thought were humorous close-ups of human welding techniques. Martinez had to admire their craftsmanship. Even their smallest vessels were masterpieces of crystal engineering. And soon, that same engineering would be their undoing. Package from the Russians just arrived, Rodriguez reported. They're calling it a decommissioned weather satellite. The massive cylinder that emerged from the Russian shuttle's cargo bay was definitely no weather satellite, but the Zex Theory didn't need to know that. The alien ambassador's voice boomed again. Note the primitive shielding they've constructed around their nuclear cores. Such charming inefficiency. Our crystalline matrices can contain 1,000 times more energy with a fraction of the material. That's what we're counting on, Martins muttered. She opened a channel to the new arrival. Russian team, connect that weather satellite to Junction Point 4. Make it look rushed. We want them to keep thinking we're just throwing things together randomly. The work continued through Earth's day and night cycles. More salvage arrived. A broken European space telescope that happened to house a perfect resonance amplifier. A Chinese communications array that would help focus the pulse, and countless other pieces of space junk that were anything but junk. 16 hours until their deadline, Peterson reminded her. How close are we? Martinez watched as the final reactor was nudged into position. From certain angles, it looked like a chaotic mass of welded-together space debris, but from the right perspective, one that only she and her team knew to look for, It formed a precise geometric pattern. "Right on schedule," she replied. "Have our ground teams finished evacuating the target zones?" "Almost. The Zextheri think they're running away in panic. They have no idea we're clearing the areas most likely to be hit by falling crystal debris." Martinez looked up at the gleaming Zextheri fleet. Their ships had gathered in even greater numbers to watch humanity's primitive construction project, unconsciously arranging themselves into the perfect formation for what was to come. "You know what the best part is?" she said, watching another crystal ship move closer for a better camera angle. "They're so convinced of their superiority, they're going to stay and watch. They want to see their mockery validated. Instead, they're going to witness their own destruction, broadcast live across their entire empire." The junkyard construction site sparkled in the sunlight, its true purpose hidden beneath a carefully crafted facade of desperation. In less than 16 hours, the galaxy would learn a valuable lesson about underestimating human ingenuity and the dangers of confusing simplicity with primitiveness. 12 hours to deadline, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with tension. The Houston control room had transformed into an impromptu resistance headquarters, its screens displaying a dazzling array of reactor synchronization data and fleet positions. Commander Martinez stood before the main display, watching as the Zextheri ships arranged themselves into what their broadcasts called the Triumph Constellation. The crystalline vessels moved with fluid grace, each one sliding into position like a dancer in some cosmic ballet. "They're actually color-coding their formation by crystal resonance frequency," Dr. Peterson observed, her eyes glued to the spectral analysis. "It's beautiful, and exactly what we needed. They're literally organizing themselves by vulnerability." The alien fleet had swollen to unprecedented numbers. Thousands of crystal ships filled Earth's orbit, their formations creating complex geometric patterns that scattered sunlight in rainbow cascades. They were putting on a show, demonstrating their superiority through synchronized maneuvers that would soon become their undoing. "Final reactor synchronization test," Martins ordered, watching as her teams made microscopic adjustments to their junkyard construction. The Zextheri continued broadcasting their mockery, their camera drones capturing every detail of what they thought was desperate human inefficiency. "Remember when we used to pull all-nighters cramming for quantum mechanics?" Peterson asked, passing Martinez a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "This feels like that, except the final exam could literally save or doom humanity." A warning light flashed on one of the monitoring stations. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, "the Chinese reactor at Junction 7 is showing harmonic instability." Martinez felt her heart skip a beat, but kept her voice steady. "Redirect power from the European array to compensate. Keep it looking messy. Let them think we're having trouble holding it together." The Zextheri ambassador's face appeared on the main screen, their crystalline features arranged in an expression of amused pity. "Your determination is admirable, if misguided," they announced. "We've been taking bets on which of your primitive reactors will fail first. The odds are quite entertaining." "How kind of them to be so invested in our work," Martins muttered, exchanging a knowing look with Peterson. Every bet placed, every mockery broadcast, only confirmed that their deception was working. The aliens were so convinced of their superiority that they couldn't conceive of their own technology being turned against them. "Junction 7 stabilized," Rodriguez reported. "But we're seeing pressure buildups in the cooling systems across all reactors." "Let them build," Martinez ordered. "As long as we stay under critical thresholds, the strain will help sell our desperation." She turned to Peterson. "How's the resonance mapping coming?" The physicist manipulated her display, showing the complex web of frequencies they detected. "Their formation is actually improving our chances. The way they've arranged themselves by crystal type. It's like they're building us a path for the cascade effect." Above them, the crystal ships continued their elaborate dance, jockeying for the best positions to witness what they thought would be humanity's humiliating failure. Their broadcasts had taken on an almost festive atmosphere, with alien commentators offering running commentary on human engineering practices. 6 hours to synchronization, Martinez announced to her teams. Remember, every mistake they see is covering a precision they don't. Make it count. The control room buzzed with activity as final adjustments were made. Each team had rehearsed their part of the operation endlessly, knowing they would only get one chance. The Zextheri's own arrogance had given them time to prepare, their entertainment broadcasts providing cover for humanity's real preparations. Commander, Rodriguez called out softly. The President is on a secure line. She's asking if we should begin evacuating major cities. Just in case. Martinez studied the display, watching the reactor harmonics align precisely as planned. Above, the crystal ships glittered in their perfect formation, unknowingly arranged for maximum destruction. Everything was proceeding exactly as they'd hoped, almost too perfectly. Tell her to hold off, Martinez replied. If we fail, evacuation won't matter. And if we succeed? She looked up at the gleaming fleet, a predatory smile crossing her face. If we succeed, the only things falling from the sky will be crystal shards too small to hurt anyone. The countdown continued as humanity's primitive weapon neared completion, its true purpose hidden beneath a carefully orchestrated display of desperation and inefficiency. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one your enemy never sees coming. The final hour arrived with a symphony of alarms from the Zextheri fleet. Their crystalline ships pulsed with light, creating a mesmerizing display that would have been beautiful if it wasn't meant to herald humanity's surrender. All stations, final status check. Commander Martinez called out, her voice steady despite the weight of billions of lives resting on their plan. The Houston control room hummed with nervous energy as teams reported in. Reactor 1, synchronized. 2 through 4, holding steady. 5 through 8, harmonics aligned. Dr. Peterson's fingers danced across her console, making minute adjustments to their timing sequences. The reactors are drawing more power than we anticipated. We might only get one shot at this. The main screen lit up with the Zextheri ambassador's sneering face. Your time has expired, primitives. We expect your immediate. The ambassador's demands cut off abruptly as every speaker on Earth began blasting the final countdown. Martinez couldn't help but smile as she saw the alien's expression shift from condescension to confusion. What is the meaning of this primitive audio assault? The ambassador demanded, their crystalline features reflecting rainbow patterns of irritation. Just a little Earth culture, Martinez replied, watching her displays carefully. The Zextheri fleet was moving closer, exactly as predicted. We thought you might appreciate one last broadcast of your own. The alien ships drew nearer, their formations tightening as they prepared to begin what they call the integration process. Their crystal matrices hummed with power, creating harmonic patterns that their own sensors showed would be devastating to Earth's infrastructure if they got the chance to use them. Your attempt at defiance is noted, the ambassador said, their voice dripping with amusement. Perhaps we'll include it in our documentary about proper species integration. Now, witness true power. The crystal ships began to glow brighter, their formation creating a lattice of pure energy above Earth's atmosphere. Camera drones darted between them, broadcasting what they thought would be humanity's final moments to their empire. Junction points holding steady, Rodriguez reported, sweat beading on his forehead. Enemy fleet is at optimal range. Their formation. Commander, they couldn't have positioned themselves better if we'd asked them to. Martinez nodded, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. Dr. Peterson, final calculations. The resonance patterns are perfect, Peterson confirmed, her voice tight with anticipation. Their ships are synchronized for maximum energy transfer. They think they're building up to something magnificent. Oh, it will be magnificent, Martinez murmured. Just not for them. She opened a channel to the ambassador. Before you begin, we have one last primitive message for you. The ambassador's smirk was visible across all frequencies. By all means, entertain us one final time. Martinez looked at her team, saw the determination in their eyes, the culmination of their desperate gamble about to unfold. "We just wanted to thank you," she said to the ambassador, "for broadcasting this across your entire empire. It's important that everyone learns this lesson." Lesson. The ambassador's laugh carried harmonics that made the crystals in their temples shimmer. And what lesson could primitives possibly teach the Zextheri Imperium? Martinez's finger hovered over the activation switch. Never mock what you don't understand. She pressed the button, especially if it's nuclear physics. The primitive reactors surged to life, their carefully hidden synchronization creating a pulse that rippled through space. The Zextheri ships, arranged in their perfect energy channeling formation, didn't even have time to realize what was happening. The first crystal matrix began to vibrate, its structure amplifying the very frequencies they had dismissed as harmless. The ship's own broadcast systems, still faithfully transmitting their moment of triumph, carried the resonance pattern to its neighbors. As the cascade began, Martinez watched the ambassador's face change from amusement to dawning horror. The alien finally understood what humanity had built, not a desperate last stand, but a trap specifically designed to turn their greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness. "What have you done?" the ambassador whispered, their voice distorting as their ship's crystals began to sing with destructive harmonies. Martinez's reply was lost in the beginning of what would soon be called the Crystal Rain. Above Earth, the mighty Zextheri fleet was about to learn that sometimes the most primitive solution was the most elegant and the most devastating. The first crystal ship shattered like a champagne flute in an opera singer's highest note. Its destruction wasn't an explosion. It was more elegant, more terrible. The vessel simply came apart in a cascade of crystalline fragments, each piece catching sunlight as it spun away into space. Resonance pattern holding steady, Dr. Peterson reported, her voice barely above a whisper as she watched their calculations prove devastatingly correct. The carrier wave is being amplified by their own broadcast network. Commander Martinez gripped the edge of her console, watching as their primitive weapon exceeded even their most optimistic projections. The Zextheri ships weren't just vulnerable to the specific frequencies they were generating. They were perfect conductors for them. By the stars, the ambassador's voice crackled through distorting communications. "What have you done to our crystal matrices?" Their own ship's structure was beginning to vibrate, sending rainbow patterns of stress fractures across their broadcast image. "We didn't do anything to them," Martinez replied, watching as the destruction spread in geometric patterns through the fleet. "We just played the right note. Your superior technology did the rest." The Zextheri fleet's formation, so carefully arranged for their moment of triumph, had become a perfect network for their destruction. Each ship's crystal matrix, designed to channel and amplify energy, caught the resonance frequency and magnified it before passing it along to its neighbors. "Multiple detonations in the upper atmosphere," Rodriguez called out, his fingers flying across his console. "The debris pattern is following our predictions. Population centers should be safe from any significant fallout." The view from Houston Control was apocalyptic yet beautiful. The dying ships created an aurora of crystalline fragments, each piece catching and refracting sunlight as it burned up in the atmosphere. It looked like the sky was crying diamonds. "They're trying to power down their systems," Peterson observed, tracking the energy readings. "But the resonance pattern has become self-sustaining. Their own technology won't let them shut it off." A new voice cut through the chaos. Another Zextheri commander, their transmission barely stable. "Cease this attack immediately. You're destroying technologies you can't even comprehend." "Oh, we comprehend them just fine," Martinez responded, allowing herself a grim smile. "Better than you do, apparently. You engineered around the crystal matrix's fundamental weakness so effectively that you forgot it existed. We just remembered what you chose to forget." The destruction spread like cracks through ice, each ship's death adding its energy to the cascade. The Zextheri's attempts to flee only dragged the resonance pattern with them, their own movement helping to distribute the destructive frequency throughout their formation. "Commander," Rodriguez said urgently, "their flagship is trying something." They're attempting to reconfigure their crystal matrix too. The flagship's attempt at adaptation ended in spectacular fashion as its crystals shattered in a starburst pattern, the pieces tumbling through space like a kaleidoscope breaking apart. They tried to change their resonance frequency, Peterson explained, studying the readings, but they couldn't do it fast enough. The more they manipulated their crystal matrices, the more vulnerable they became to the harmonic variations. Martinez watched as humanity's primitive nuclear reactors continued their synchronized pulse, each cycle catching more ships in the destructive resonance. The Zextheri's own technology, their pride and joy, had become the perfect amplifier for their destruction. Broadcast channels are failing across their fleet, Rodriguez reported. Their communication network is literally falling apart. The ambassador's final transmission came through in fragments, their image breaking apart like their ships. How? Primitives like you. Impossible. That's humanity's specialty, Martinez replied, though she wasn't sure if they could still hear her. Doing the impossible with whatever tools we have at hand, even the primitive ones. The Houston control room fell silent as they watched their plan reach its full devastating potential. The mighty Zextheri fleet, which had arrived to subjugate Earth with their superior technology, was being undone by the very principles they had dismissed as beneath their notice. In the end, their defeat came not from advanced weapons or superior technology, but from humanity's understanding of basic physics and their own arrogant blindness to the power of simple solutions. Earth's night side erupted in a display that made the northern lights look dim by comparison. Fragments of crystal ships burned through the atmosphere in streaming ribbons of color, their remnants creating patterns that would inspire artists for generations to come. Main destroyer group is completely neutralized, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice hoarse from hours of constant updates. Remaining vessels they're just falling apart. The resonance pattern is still spreading through their formation. Commander Martinez watched as the massive fleet that had threatened Earth just hours ago transformed into the most expensive light show in human history. The Zextheri's mighty Armada was dissolving into a glittering cloud of debris, each piece catching sunlight as it spun through space. "We need to shut down the reactors," Dr. Peterson warned, her eyes fixed on the energy readings. "The resonance effect has become self-sustaining. If we don't power down now, we might lose control of the cascade." Martinez nodded, beginning the shutdown sequence they'd prepared. "All stations, initiate power-down protocols. Let's not get carried away by our own success." The primitive nuclear reactors that had brought low the mighty Zextheri fleet slowly powered down, their synchronized pulse fading away. But the destruction they'd started continued, crystal ships still breaking apart as the resonance pattern echoed through their ranks. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez called out suddenly. It's not from the fleet. The signal's coming from much further out." The main screen flickered to life, showing a face similar to the Zextheri, but lacking their characteristic crystal growths. The alien's expression was a mixture of awe and barely contained excitement. "People of Earth," the new alien spoke, their voice carrying none of the Zextheri's condescension. "I am Ambassador Xen of the Free Worlds Coalition. We've been monitoring the Zextheri's expansion for centuries, but never has anyone managed to defeat their fleet so completely." Martinez exchanged glances with Peterson before responding. "They made the mistake of assuming that primitive technology meant primitive understanding. We simply proved them wrong. Your solution was..." The ambassador paused, searching for words, brilliantly elegant. "Using basic wave mechanics to exploit their crystal matrices' fundamental resonance patterns. Many civilizations have tried to develop countermeasures against Zextheri technology, but they all focused on creating more advanced systems. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one," Peterson offered, still watching the debris field expanding above Earth. "Especially when your opponent has forgotten to account for basic principles in their rush to advance." The light show continued across Earth's sky as more crystal ships succumbed to the resonance pattern. Some tried to flee, their engines pushing them to maximum velocity, but they only succeeded in spreading the destructive frequency to other parts of their fleet. "Commander," Rodriguez interrupted, "we're getting readings from the debris field. Some of the larger crystal fragments are maintaining stability. They might be recoverable for study." The Zextheri's greatest weakness was their contempt for primitive technology, Ambassador Xen observed. They became so focused on advancing their crystal matrices that they forgot the fundamental physics that made them work. "Your victory will be studied for generations." Martinez watched as teams began coordinating recovery operations for the stable crystal fragments. Already, scientists worldwide were clamoring for the chance to study the alien technology, not to replicate it, but to better understand how their own primitive solution had worked so effectively. "Look," Peterson pointed to her display. "The debris is creating a new radiation belt around Earth. The remaining crystal fragments are actually capturing and channeling solar wind particles. We might be able to use this for protecting Earth from future threats." Martinez finished, a smile crossing her face. The Zextheri's final gift to humanity, a shield made from their own shattered fleet. Above them, the crystal rain continued, Earth's atmosphere burning the remnants of the mighty Armada into streaks of light that people would talk about for centuries. Their destruction painted the sky in colors no human had ever seen before, a final testament to the beauty and danger of underestimating primitive ingenuity. 1 month after the crystal rain, Commander Martinez stood at a podium before the United Nations General Assembly. The chamber was packed with representatives from Earth's nations, and more surprisingly, a dozen alien species who had arrived in the weeks following humanity's victory. "The Zextheri's greatest mistake wasn't their technology," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. "It was their assumption that advancement only moves in one direction. They forgot that understanding fundamental principles is more valuable than any amount of technological sophistication." Dr. Peterson, seated in the front row, nodded as she reviewed the latest data on her tablet. The crystal debris field had settled into a stable orbit, creating what scientists now called the crystal belt, a shimmering barrier that enhanced Earth's natural radiation shields. "We've received requests from 17 different civilizations to study what they're calling the Earth technique," Martinez continued. "But there's nothing special about what we did. We simply remembered what the Zextheri chose to forget, that the simplest solution is often the most elegant." The alien ambassadors in attendance shifted in their seats, their various forms and features all showing signs of what humans had learned to recognize as deep interest. Many of them represented worlds that had lived under the shadow of Zextheri expansion for centuries. "The recovered crystal fragments have taught us much." Martinez gestured to the holographic display behind her, showing the analysis of the alien technology. Not about how to replicate their advanced systems, but about the basic principles they were built upon. Principles that they became too sophisticated to remember. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now Captain Rodriguez, managed the display as it showed simulations of how their primitive solution had worked. The aliens in attendance leaned forward, many of them seeing for the first time exactly how a handful of nuclear reactors had brought down the mightiest fleet in known space. "But the most valuable lesson," Martinez continued, "isn't about technology at all. It's about the danger of contempt. The Zextheri were so convinced of their superiority that they broadcast their own destruction across their empire. Their arrogance became our greatest weapon." The chamber's screen showed footage from that day, the crystal ships breaking apart in cascading waves of destruction, their own communication network spreading the resonance pattern that destroyed them. Several alien representatives nodded knowingly. They had watched it happen live. "We've been asked if Earth will share its advanced defense technology with other worlds." Martinez smiled slightly. "But what we offer instead is something more valuable. A reminder. A reminder that true advancement comes not from forgetting the basics, but from understanding them so well that you can see solutions others miss." Dr. Peterson stood, joining Martinez at the podium with her latest findings. "The crystal belt isn't just a memorial to human ingenuity," she explained. It's a working example of how understanding fundamental principles can turn any technology, no matter how advanced, into something useful. The very fragments that were meant to destroy us now help protect us. The alien ambassadors murmured in appreciation. Several of them had already begun implementing similar primitive solutions to long-standing problems, finding that sometimes the oldest approaches were the most effective. As Earth joins the galactic community, Martins concluded, "We bring with us not advanced technology or sophisticated weapons, but something far more valuable. The reminder that no civilization becomes too advanced to learn from its simplest members." The Zex theory forgot that lesson. We never will. As the chamber erupted in applause, Martinez looked out over the assembled representatives of Earth and beyond. The crystal fragments in orbit caught the morning sun, sending ribbons of light through the chamber's windows, a constant reminder that sometimes the most powerful solution isn't the most advanced, but the one simple enough to be fully understood. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating primitive species, but humanity had learned an even more important one. In a universe of advancing technology and increasing complexity, understanding the basics wasn't just an advantage, it was a superpower.